Campus to Canton. Campus to Canton on the Better Sports Network.
What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Matty B back on the ones and twos. It's been a minute. I've missed you guys. I hope you guys have missed me as much as I've missed you. I was, had a band, not allowed to be on any shows, but then the one true leader of the show, Felix Sharp, decided that he had a hot date that was just too much to pass up. So he passed the reins off to me. I'm here with Chris Moxley, the Better Sports Show. It's Campus to Canton. Mox, I'm gonna start it with Felix's favorite way to kick off the show. How you doing tonight, buddy? It's been a minute. How's everything going?
I feel like we haven't been on a show together in a while.
It has been.
Like you and I keep like alternating weeks off and stuff, so it's good to talk to you, man.
It is. It's fun. We got a great show for you guys. We're going to talk a little ACC. There seems to be some dissension in the ACC. Maybe we're going to have teams break away. We're going to talk a little bit about the EA contract. We're getting the college football game back next year. I'm excited about that. Apparently, we're going to talk a little bit of Mike Bobo. Maybe. I don't know. We'll throw that in there. I heard you guys had a great show talking about Mike Bobo on Debbie Debate, win totals, NIL, all kinds of stuff, Mox. So let's just dive right into it. If you have not been paying attention to the college football landscape here recently, the ACC and the Magnificent Seven, they are re-examining the cost structure given on the ACC deal, which I believe, Mox, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, has kind of been considered like the worst in all of college football.
Oh,
here.
it sucks.
Okay, yeah, I thought so.
Jim Phillips, who negotiated it, is an idiot. By the way,
it's pretty bad, guys. It's pretty bad. It's
horrendous, is what it is.
So they are,
just to be honest.
Yeah. So their deal, what is it? 240 annually to 14 teams. The Big Ten is $1 billion for 7 years.
Yeah. So they pay a fifth, essentially like 25% of what the Big Ten does for the same number of teams, and so the Big Ten, at least you can negotiate in like another 7 years, right? Like you can say, okay, this deal isn't working for us. Here's where we want to land. The ACC is locked into this deal for another 13 years. It is legitimately one of the worst business contracts signed between some sort of sports league and a media partner. Like it's that bad.
Which is signed with ESPN. For those of you who do not know who the deal is with, it is with ESPN. Yep. So Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech are being coined as the Magnificent Seven. Not the movie with Chris Pratt, and who else was in that movie? I've never actually seen it, but I've heard it's fairly good.
I didn't even know it was a movie.
Yeah, it's a Western. He plays like a magician, but he's also like a
Chris Pratt in a Western is... It's a stretch.
How dare you, sir? Chris Pratt is amazing. You seen the new? We're going off the rails here. Guardians of the Galaxy, amazing movie, amazing. But anyway,
yeah, Chris Pratt is Star-Lord and Andy Dwyer in Parks and Rec, and his range outside of that is very limited.
That may be true. I feel like he plays a little bit of Star-Lord in Magnificent Seven. But again, back to the college. We'll go back to the college football here thing. It has been reported in the past several months that those schools have been meeting with lawyers examining the grant of rights to determine how unbreakable this contract is. And I believe, and you may be able to correct me here on Mox, I've been a little bit in and out of the college news media. I've actually taken a couple days off, which is surprising to a few of people here. It feels like 10 teams have to break out of this, right, to, I guess, effectively nullify this contract.
Yeah, so yeah, there's 10 teams who essentially need to decide that like this deal doesn't work anymore. And what I view the Magnificent Seven as, which we're just gonna go do a bunch of asides tonight, I think. How long do you think the power brokers, I should say, spent determining the name the Magnificent Seven? Like, a long time, right?
It says several meetings or several months. I imagine, let's go 3 of the 4 months they've been meeting. They probably finally came up with this term. They've only spent a month actually meeting about how to get out of the contract.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. They were trying to figure out the best, like the sexiest name brand for what they're trying to do.
I bet you they watched the movie and that's when it dawned on them. I bet you that's what happened. They're like, oh, Chris Pratt Pratt, he's amazing in Guardians of the Galaxy. What else is he doing? Oh, this movie, Magnificent Seven. Watch it not even be Magnificent Seven. Will's going to jump in our ears here in a minute. By the way, it's not actually named that, but I think it is. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Will correct us, and then he'll roast us with our depending on how we do with his music choices coming
you know
in
what?
and out of it.
This show's going
That's
completely
it.
off the rails. I am disappointed. First show back, we did not get Will Smith. No Felix here. You and me have
Oh,
stand.
whoa!
Will Smith is better than Drake.
Don't
Saying.
presume. It could be our intro music. We know
I could
you and I both know that Will Smith is better than Drake.
That is true. Very true. Yeah.
We'll see where it goes. But so I have a couple takeaways about this reporting from Brett McMurphy, whose tweet you read. I thought this was inevitable. I thought there was going to be a handful of ACC schools who decided they wanted to play ball, i.e., didn't want to focus on academics as heavily as the rest of the group, and decided that they wanted to make it easier for football at their respective programs. That's part one. And this group makes sense given like who it is. I don't think they're going to stay in the ACC long term, though. Like, I really don't believe that. I think that we are maybe a year or two away from them breaking off. Like, I just don't think this was like an ACC only deal, right? So the background on this is that, leadership came out for the ACC and said, hey, they're going to stay. We might restructure the payment options. You're making like 25% of what the Big Ten is. Like, if you're Clemson, if you're FSU, you're Miami, like you're leaving essentially. Like we are, in my opinion, 3 to 4 years away from a true like mega conference structure. This is not like a tenable solution long term, right? Like the ACC is essentially dead, right?
I would think so. I don't see how you can go pay. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't see how. I mean, if we're being honest, if you look at the ACC, it is the teams for the most part that we mentioned. I don't know that Virginia Tech is that big of a TV draw, or in essence, really Virginia. NC State, I would think, probably has a pretty good draw, especially how good they've been of late. But the big dogs in the conference are Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and North Carolina.
You're essentially getting the Mid-Atlantic, which is occupied by no TV deal currently. Virginia Tech, NC State and UNC, and NC State and UNC are in like a top 25 market in Raleigh-Durham. And so like you're getting that, and then you're getting like Blacksburg is not a big market, right? Yeah. But like Virginia plus Virginia Tech gets you like Roanoke and a handful of other markets that you probably want to expand in if you are a mega conference potentially. And so I do think it makes sense who they've chosen, right? Like look at Syracuse, right? Like who exactly they're in Ithaca, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like Ithaca is not a strong TV market. No. Look at Georgia Tech though. Like they're in Atlanta TV market and they're not chosen, and I think it's because they just want to pursue academics more than they want to pursue football. As you've a couple teams who are in like this weird transition phase that are outside of this magnificent seven, whatever the heck that means. It's just a really interesting proposal, and I think in the next 2 or 3 years the ACC will essentially be disbanded. I feel the same way about the Pac-12 for what it's worth.
Yeah,
but
so
we're getting very close to like a 2-conference system.
That's what I was going to ask. You think if they break away, are they going and joining the SEC and the Big Ten? Is that what we're heading to? I still think we're going to have, because then what happens with the Big 12? They're not just going to sit around with it. I mean, I feel like we've got to have 3 or 4. I just don't know that it makes sense to get the ACC and the Pac-12 to come together, because then you're really, at least for the college football teams, you're kind of screwing them. That's a lot of cross-country travel to put all those teams in one conference. But
shit, like UCLA is going to play Rutgers.
I mean, I know.
Pac-12 at night is going to be in Piscataway, New Jersey. So I just want to say, like, I think we're past that at this point. I think the biggest question is, who is in that top division of like elite teams who are willing to spend on sports and willing to sacrifice academics to an extent, right? Like Duke's not in this, Georgia Tech's not in this. Like there are teams who are obviously not willing to do so. Stanford, obviously, Northwestern, Vanderbilt, like those teams. I think Vanderbilt would be left out if the SEC did choose to like realign a little bit. But we're not that far off from like some sort of mega conference where there's very little regional aspect to it. It's just all the teams that want to play ball, essentially.
I don't know that that's a bad thing. I want college football to be more national. I know a lot of other people don't. They love the regionality of it. That's kind of what has made college football special in a way. And I don't think all of that goes away if they do that. I just don't know that I would love to see two. I mean, what are the Big Ten and SEC going to be at now? 14 each? Is that correct?
I thought the Big 10 could be a 16.
Maybe it is.
But
16. Jeez.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head,
Yes,
right?
it
But
will
like,
be 16. Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah, so in the next 2 years, we'll have essentially what is two mega conferences. I think both will be at 16 by the end of the 2024 season, with USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten, and Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC. And I think the teams from the ACC will probably go to the conferences as well. So I will say what is interesting is the state schools in a handful of SEC programs have rejected it for a long time. Right? Like South Carolina is very vehemently against Clemson joining. Florida is very much against both Miami and Florida State joining, and so it'll be interesting to see what actually happens, because there's a lot of pushback among those schools about them joining. Like it is not. Yeah. There's a reason those programs probably aren't in the SEC right now, and a lot of that is member schools don't want them and have used their political capital to do so. I don't know that's going to last for the next couple of years.
I mean, Texas A&M's been trying to fight that good fight for a while, and here comes Texas next year.
They tried very hard to avoid Texas joining, and we're extremely, I don't want to say outspoken, because I don't think that was ever like public.
No,
but like it is no secret that they were very outspoken internally about it.
I still don't love the idea of two big super conferences. I don't know why. I can't wrap my head around it. I want to see
they'll figure out some sort of like conference structure within the super conferences, I think, where like it makes a little bit more sense. But I mean, you're going to get like 60 to 70 schools essentially who are in that conference, and I think we're like 3 years away from such.
Never.
And then
it's never going to happen, Moxley. Stop it. This is my first show.
Oh, it's happening.
Show. What are we going to? Like well, they don't have 60 teams in there. So what do we go to, like a Premier League format? We got 30 teams in one league. You're just, hey, I don't even think it's 30. It's probably like 24. But
I don't know what the long-term solution is, but I do think that there is a upper tier of programs that's like 60-ish big and will operate kind of as their own entity. And I think that they are the programs who are willing to pay players as employees as well. So like that is a whole different conversation of like who is willing to do so and who isn't. I think that's why I think Vanderbilt isn't going to be included despite being in the SEC. Duke, who isn't part of the Magnificent Seven and had like 8 wins in the ACC last year, like they won't be included. It's going to be a pretty interesting conversation over the next 3 years, I think, in terms of who are the power brokers are and what that necessarily means. So
I mean, what do you think it's going to be? Just like a North and a South, and you're going to have them all join. It's going to go Big Ten and SEC. Because I mean, we're still. I mean, I guess it's possible.
Essentially, is what it's going to be. Like essentially
expand. But I mean, you're looking at them. I mean, we already got 16 teams in each conference. We've heard Oregon and Washington have tried to go to the Big Ten. So if you get 2 there, that goes to 18. You get a couple from the ACC to go to the SEC. You try and get 24 in each. You're still
at least
12 teams out of all these to go into the playoffs.
It'll totally remake the structure. Like, I don't think the college football in 5 years will look remotely similar to what it does now. I think there will be a massive, massive shift. And the Supreme Court case opened up that possibility. That's the whole thing, right? Like, we would not even be here if it wasn't from the court case from 2 years ago that I think it was Brett Kavanaugh wrote the harshest opinion on, which was like, I don't need, this is me phrasing Brent Kavanaugh, by the way, so I don't want to act like I am speaking his exact words. Essentially, he said, I don't know what the hell y'all are doing. Like, these players are essentially employees from the university. And so since then, I think that we've just been holding back as long as we can to get this model in place, which is we treat them as employees of the university in some sort of extenuating circumstance that makes sense. I'm not intelligent enough to understand what the model will be in 5 years, but I do think there's going to be a drastically different situation.
I still think we're going to have more than 2 conferences, but maybe that's wishful thinking on my part because it doesn't seem
there,
like
there probably will be. There probably will be, but it will be a much different look than what it is currently.
Yeah. I would not be surprised, but I feel like we've talked about that for a while, that we see it going of the way of, like, instead of it being a Power 5, it goes to like a Power 4 or something like that. We've kind of talked about the death of one of these conferences coming. A lot of us thought it was going to be the Big 12 with the fact that Texas and ONU left. They did a fairly good job.
Brett Yormark deserves so much credit.
Yeah, I agree.
For what he did with the Big 12. Like, he brought in BYU, Houston, Cincinnati. Like, those are all top tier Power 5/independent programs. And he did a fantastic job holding this conference together. Like, he deserves so much credit for what he did in a very short fashion.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Are they the one that maybe we're not looking at enough that tries to make a move to get some of these Pac-12 teams? Because they've been rumored to go after.
I saw the corner 4.
Yeah,
which is
Arizona State. Who are the other 2?
Utah.
I don't remember who the 4th is.
Me neither.
But it's like a team in the Pac-12, folks. Will tell you that. I for the life of me cannot remember who it is, but yeah, that has been the rumor for a little bit of time that they've been trying to get them. I would love for them to do it. Like I said, I would hate for it to go to just 2 conferences because, again, maybe they will expand and then this conversation won't matter at that point. As I agree with you, I don't even know that we're 5 years away. We could be 2 or 3 because they've only announced the playoffs.
I was trying to be nice.
For 2 years, so like we could see that changing in the next coming years, but it's just, to me, going to be weird to see like 2 30-team conferences because you're not going to get a chance to play everybody within a certain, depending, I guess, on how they do the schedule. It'll be, rotating throughout certain years. You'll have your protected rivalries, which I think they're doing now. But then you're still getting 12 teams into the playoffs. So, like, what is the point? How are you going to manage that? There's a lot to clean up. And I'm with you. I'm not as smart as Colorado. Ooh, Colorado and Utah.
Yeah, Colorado's the other team. So Colorado was.
Here we go again.
Every time,
Austin's favorite subject. Every show.
Every time Felix is on, we talk about Colorado for like 15 minutes, and it's just the same stuff where Dion is king, and he's going to revitalize all the bowling alleys in Boulder, despite the average home price being like over $1 million.
It's going to go to $2 million now. Dion's level of influence. Yeah,
but I don't think this generation realizes that Colorado was like really freaking good at football for a long time, and they have the resources to do so if they choose to do so. They have not chosen to do so for a long time. They have essentially like written off the football program for a while. So like they haven't invested in NIL. They haven't played game with transfers. And if that is going to change even post Dion, if it ends up how like it works out that Dion's only there for a handful of years for whatever reason, because they're playing ball now, I think you're going to see a Colorado program that is very healthy. And I think they could be in the middle of the Pac-12. And that's a good place to be in.
Yeah.
And that is a team that is going to be probably within the top 60 programs in the country if they're willing to play ball. And I think they're trending towards yes.
So Moxley mentioned that the government opened this up with that court case. So if you don't like the way college football is trending, blame your government. That's just kind of the simple way
I
about
blame
that.
McGovern for everything. So yeah,
Most people do.
makes sense.
We are going to head to break, though, and after we come back from that, there is another thing that the deal with the I should say the deal with the government. The government, though, opened up for us when it comes to NIL that is bringing back the love of a lot of people in the college football video game. NCAA, I believe it'll be 24, will be the first version that we will get back, and because of the goings on there, we now have a chance to see that come back with players actually in the game thanks to the NIL deal. As soon as we get back from break, Moxley and I will break that down and tell you why we love this for the college football game.
Campus to Canton.
What can we expect for you out there on the track tonight?
Listen, I have a wife, 2 kids. I have, full-time jobs. I'm never nervous. I don't even know what that word means. Can you explain what nervous means? No. I'm ready to have fun. I've never done anything like this before. I got asked to be a part of this. This is fascinating. Like, it's so cool to just look around and see what goes on here. So I'm just excited to get out on the horse. And you want trash talk? Is that what you're asking me for? No trash talk. I hope everyone does well.
All right. Everyone's going to do well, but it has to be a winner. So give me your trifecta. Who's going to come in first, second, and third? Heat.
I will go Maria 1, me 2, Willie 3, Moose goes 4th.
Well, it's very simple. I won this event last year. I won my heat, and so the defending champ has to be the favorite. Now, that makes me a little nervous just because I feel like it's hard to repeat. There's a little pressure when you're the favorite, but that being said, I'm still optimistic.
So your heat, it's you,
Yes.
Moose and Keith from Better Sports Network, and Willie Colon.
I think Keith might be my stiffest competition, and I asked for this because I actually recruited Keith, if you didn't know. So Keith, if you win, you're welcome.
Malusis is very good. I mean, he knows what he's doing, but I'm going to go with Maria.
Keith is waving to the crowd. He must pay attention because they're off. It's Mark Malusis going for the lead. Maria Marino on the outside, and now Keith Irizarry on the outside with speed, and they're 3 wide into the first turn. Woo! Mark Malusis is locked in for his life. 138 and 2. They're into the stretch. Sportscasters Derby 2. And still in front, Keith Irizarry. And now Mark Malusis is trying to squeeze on through.
Come on! Yeah! Come on! Let's go! Come on, dig it! Yeah!
Keith Irizarry. Keith, you did it all the way, wire to wire, over Mark Malusis.
Awesome! That was so cool!
The champ is here! Keith, what was it like being out there? Adrenaline rush. You were doing the Instagram Live, so there was no panic. You looked cool, calm, collected the whole time, and you won it.
I felt really comfortable. I did. Like, I know you were joking with me before. Are you nervous? Are you whatever? What are you? David, the driver, was awesome. He's like, we're going to win this. I said, all right, let's win this. And he said, let's go. Yeah, I just felt really comfortable. I did. It was fun. We're in the lead. I got Maria Marino on the right side of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's going to beat us, right? And then out of nowhere, you see Moose coming up this way, and we feel him breathing down our neck. And I'm like,
Moose
no,
on the loose.
Moose.
Watch out.
Moose was definitely on the loose, and we just got Moose by a neck, a nose, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but again, all of this for a great cause, and it was absolutely awesome to do this. It was cool.
All right, Keith, congratulations, and no matter what, you could always hold this over Moose's head.
Yeah!
I don't know if Felix would like this time. To be honest with you, I kind of like it. Fits your shirt a little bit here, I think, Chris. Very fitting intro. I think we'll like it. I'm gonna go with the yes because Felix would be upset right now. Felix would be like, we killed it. We were horrible in the first segment. Will's not happy.
Yeah, essentially.
Okay. Well, I think we killed it, and that's all that matters. All right, we are back. This is Campus2Canton Show, Better Sports Network. That is Chris Moxley. I am Matt Bruning, and we're going to talk now a little bit about the EA Sports game and how we are now getting, hopefully, these players in the actual game. Mike Rothstein of ESPN, an EA Sports representative, confirmed to them on Wednesday that is contacted with one team partners to facilitate collegiate athletes' names and likenesses into the game, solving one of the major questions about the college football return. I believe they are getting, it is $500 per athlete. All they have to do is opt in to the game. That's all they have to do. Now, I believe they have said that not every player will get like a face scan. They will be in the game, but you may not get like the perfect face scan and look exactly like them. But any player that opts in will be in the game, and any player that opts out, they will put in a random player for that. I mean, Mox, your thought. I don't know if you played the NCAA games. I did. I bought them religiously when they came out. I loved every second of them. Building up, of course, I played with, if you little old school up in Ohio, the Ohio State University. I know probably not a lot of people were playing with them. I loved it. Did you play the game? What are your thoughts on this move here by EA Sports?
So I did play the game. I think it was NCAA 07 was the one that I played the most. And so I grew up in New Jersey. I grew up a Rutgers fan. And so that was when Rutgers was good. And so I played with number 27 running back, Ray Rice, who checkered past now. But at the time, was, one of my favorite players ever. And, Mike Teal, Tequan Underwood, Mohamed Sanu, like all those dudes. And so I loved this game because I knew the numbers and could associate with them because I was such a big fan of college football. But I don't think that's true for everybody. And I think you're expanding into a brand new market with this game a decade later.
Yeah, it's the correlation here that I've made, and we talked a lot about it. I know Felix was tweeting some stuff out on Twitter about this, is FIFA. The FIFA soccer games is kind of the correlation that I've made for this online, because in America, soccer is not that popular of a sport. It is below even college football. I mean, there we go, baby. Look at that. Reggie Bush on there too. SS number 3. That's, man, why? Why, Will? Why? Why that? Why over the Ohio State player? It couldn't have been an Oklahoma player that Texas player was catching.
I'm so sorry that you,
Actually,
as an Ohio State fan, had to suffer all this
I
tragedy.
actually think that was the year. Will, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's the year that Texas went up there. No, it would have been the year that they won the national championship. I believe they went up to the Horseshoe and beat Ohio State. So it would not have been 07. That'd have been, was that the year they won the national championship? Regardless, let's go back to the video game. Will, you can just yell in my ear for being a really horrible fan right now because I'm probably getting that wrong, but I'm almost positive that's the year they won it. But anyways, soccer is not the top sport in America. It is NFL football. I would bet college football is second on that, above Major League Baseball, above NBA. Yet there are thousands and thousands of kids in America who know the best players in Europe when it comes to soccer because of the FIFA video games. And I do think that this has a chance to do that on the college football side of things as well. These players, now you'll get to know more about them. And we know the college football fan. I was talking with a friend of mine who is a podcaster as well with the Destination Devy Group, and he is an Iowa fan. He knows a couple of the Big Ten players and a couple of the schools, but he doesn't know that deep into it. I think having a college football fan buy this game is going to open up the college football world to them because they are going to get to know these players. Chris, is that what this game is going to do? Are the likes of, we know Caleb Williams is, we know Drake May. I don't know why his name just jumped out of my head there. Drake May, we know who he is, but could a, Kyle McCord, could a Cade Klubnik, who some people know, but if Clemson's really good and he has a good rating, could these guys start to get more and more fame because of how good they end up being in a video game?
Yeah, so Felix and I talked about this earlier this week, and he thinks that it will outsell Madden. I don't know if I quite buy that take, but what I compared it to was essentially the opposite of a canary in the coal mine, which is a pelican following a fish trawl. Like the most obvious potential opening of the floodgates is really how I view it, right? Like this is the opportunity for college football, college fantasy football, college football knowledge, like all of these things to enter a far more national media and a far more national recognition. And it's been a regional sport for so long that I think that there is so much potential here from an esports perspective, right? Think about how competitive Madden is, NHL is, like, and a bunch of other non-sports games, of course. There is a lot of potential from a high-end esports perspective, as well as introducing a brand new, what is essentially a generation of gaming players to college football. Like it's been 10 years since the NCAA 14 game was released. So you're getting a whole new gaming culture, really, because the gaming culture is obviously much shorter than a generation, considering how many youths play it as a percentage versus like players, like people in their like 30s or mid 30s. And so I think there's a lot of potential here for expansion of college football notoriety in a very good way. And I think we are on the stepping stone to national recognition in a very, very fun way. And I will say $500 per athlete, that's really cheap. And that tells me that athletes just want to be part of this game because either they grew up playing it, which is probably not true, but they played Madden and they understand, like, okay, when I catch a deep touchdown pass with Mike Evans or Stephon Diggs, like, it resonates in some aspect with younger me, and I want to be that player. So the person that's playing as Marv Harrison Jr., who will catch 18 touchdowns in like a single game on like easy or whatever, like he will probably become his favorite player, even if he's from like Quebec or something. It's awesome.
I imagine it'll be called freshman difficulty. They love to tier it to the kind of game that they are. Yeah, I mean, I think too, a lot of it's going to come from you don't want to be the one not in the game when the rest of your team is, right? You don't want to sit there and be like, oh, 500. No, I want more than that. And then the game comes out and the entire team is in the game. And you're the one that's Joe Random, number 12, because you decided you didn't want to go in the game. And then there's offensive line. There's Marvin Harrison Jr., Mekek Buka. Julian Fleming wanted his money, so he's not in the game anymore. Will did correct me in my ear that Ohio State beat Texas in 24-7 in Austin. Yes, in 2006, I was at that game. So then the year after they go,
you were at that game.
I was, yeah, I knew that one. I was trying to remember. So they went up to Ohio State and beat Ohio State in the horseshoe, though. I couldn't remember what year that was. If it was, I thought it was in 2005. Clearly, it was 2007 because it happened after that. It was in 2005. Well, I was right then. Okay, I thought it happened after that. Regardless.
This is what we have Will here, by the way.
It is, because I'm wrong all the time. Felix is too, but he never actually corrects himself. It's so, like, we just hear Will telling us how wrong Felix is when we're on the show with him. He never corrects. He's just like, yeah, I'm right, and rolls with it. Probably what I should have done. Should have just rolled with it. But it is going to be exciting to see, because I do think you're going to have a lot. Like, again, I grew up playing these games, and I've seen a lot of people my age. I'm in my 30s somewhere. We won't specify where, but I'm in there somewhere. And a lot of people my age have openly said that they can't wait for this game to come back, that they are going to get the console. They will find time to play it, even if they've gone away from playing video games. And I do agree with you. It's going to spark, I think, the younger generation to play it a little bit more. You have just things in this game that you did not have back in the day. As you mentioned with Madden, a lot of that stuff, why it's competitive now. They have I think it's called the My Team. I don't really play Madden a lot, so I play a lot of FIFA.
Dude, I have a PlayStation 2.
I mean, it's sad.
So
I have
like the most recent game that I played is like NASCAR 2007. So I understand,
Age, right? The Golden Age, yeah. I mean, I have a PS5 and an Xbox X, and I rarely play them. I don't know why I shouldn't say wasted my money, but spent a lot of money on those things to not play them. But they'll have some kind of ultimate team, My Team, so that you'll be able to get players from all over the country to be on your team and play. And I do think that again, that will help raise awareness for some of these people. They will become more and more well known. And I also think it's releasing at the perfect time because it's coming out next year when we're going to get the expanded playoff as well, which I think will help draw more eyes to college football because we'll have these playoffs throughout the holiday season, something we should probably talk about sometime. It's going to be very interesting. I feel like the NFL got a little bit upset with the way the college football playoff format dropped. Because I don't know if you've seen the way that their new schedule is. It's going to conflict a little bit with the NCAA playoffs in the coming years if they keep the current format. But I do think it's going to be a great thing for college football. I can't wait. Do you think that it will outsell Madden, though? I mean, Madden is quote unquote the premier football video game out there.
No, I don't. But I do think that you're gonna. What is critical, essentially, this conversation is I think you're gonna get a new audience introduced to college football, and that is the big takeaway. You're not gonna outsell Madden. I just don't see how that's possible. But you're going to get a very like non-introduced audience introduced to a new sport, and like that's pretty freaking cool. That you have players who are brand new to almost any college football fan, and then also brand new to players who like video game players who aren't even familiar with the like that familiar with the sport itself, I should say, right? Like Alabama just took in a corner from UAB. Like how many players or people who are interested in college football know that or like know his name, and so those sorts of things are potentially what we're going to get out of this game, and that's awesome because you're just introducing it to a brand new audience and a brand new segment of like fans. I'm just really excited. I just think it's just such a cool opportunity.
Do you think it'll ever outsell Madden, or you just think no within the next couple of years? Because I'll give you a reason why I think it could, but I want to hear your opinion first.
No, because I think they're going to essentially apply the same Madden structure and like gameplay on top of it, and so I think you're going to have the same complaints that you had about Madden. I think like a good chunk of Madden players are also going to be players of this game, so like the answer is essentially no.
So why I would say I think it has the ability to is there are more college football fans in the United States than there are NFL fans, because obviously anybody who's gone to that college more than likely is a fan of that college. And if they play video games and they have a chance to represent their college, I think more people will end up buying it. What will be intriguing, what they did with the ones previous is you could actually, and this may be a very limited amount of crossover between the two, but in the previous games, you could actually play out whatever you were coach of. We'll use South Carolina, vaunted South Carolina, right? Head coach, go Cox. He's about to put on the hat. You are Chris Moxley, head coach of South Carolina. You play through your time there. You could, in the previous games, upload those classes as they left school to go to the NFL and then import them on Madden and have those players come up. And so you could literally have you could play 3 years of say you're Georgia and you recruit Dylan Raiola, who's going to Georgia next year, high-end vaunted recruit, number one kid in the class, number one quarterback since our Prince Quinn Ewers. You could play through 3 years and then have him go to the NFL and then simulate 3 years and then put him in the Madden game. I don't know that they'll do that again. I think there's a possibility since it is EA Sports doing both of them. But I think stuff like that is going to drive college football fans to at least get the game and play that. And I do think because there are more college football fans, we might see it outsell Madden. Maybe not in the first couple years, but as we move down the line. But yeah, the one thing that does suck is the creators of Madden. And that's honestly the reason I don't play the game anymore, because Madden has a lot of issues and I just don't want to waste my money on it. But I will be buying this game. So we can't hear you, Chris Moxley. I see your lips moving, but the good thing that last word didn't come across because I'm a lip.
That's
reader.
A good thing the last word did not come across for the folks who are watching the video. I will be buying this game and upgrading my PS2 in the meantime.
It's a good call. I don't think it'll be coming out on the PS2, so you'll probably have to.
Probably not.
I'll tell you what, if a lot of you guys who are watching this, you can comment below, tag Better Sports Network, tag us at Chris Moxley 19 at Sports Fanatic MB. You're going to
we shouldn't give out
it's on the screen. Mine's not.
I know, but I've been roasted by a lot of fans recently. It's tough. It's tough living out here.
All right. If you want to get to at Chris Moxley, tag at Sharp Review on Twitter. Let us know at Sharp Review on Twitter and at Sports Fanatic MB. If you're going to get the NCAA game and you want to play, we will likely do some kind of online dynasties, and I would love to just destroy you guys with Ohio State. I'll even play as Toledo. That's fine with me. I don't care. I will happily guys.
I project Toledo is like a 9.5 win team this year. Okay, it's not like you're taking a huge.
Who's not going to?
UMass. I want you to play as UMass. I want you to play as UMass.
UMass. Okay, I'll play as UMass, and I will still beat you. I probably won't, actually. That's why I went Toledo. Thanks a lot. Yeah, Akron Zips. There we go. Will saying the Akron Zips. Hey, they won a soccer national championship back in like 06, 07. They beat that team up north. It was great to watch.
I had the Akron win total last year. It did not cash. It was 2.
I'm sorry to hear that. But Moxley, the pro that he is, set up for a perfect transition. When we get back from break, we're going to talk more win totals. We're going to give you guys some of our favorite. Coming up next.
Let me talk to you, Vlad, about an award here that I thought was very, very debatable. And it was Cy Young in the National League. In terms of odds, it's Strider at plus 230, Zach Gallen at plus 215, Clayton Kershaw plus 1,000. Clayton Kershaw, to me, his numbers are phenomenal and better, or at least right there with these other two. Strider was my preseason pick to win the award. But Clayton Kershaw at plus 1,000 compared to these other guys with similar numbers in the plus 200s. Like, let's bang on Kershaw and hope he doesn't get hurt, right? Where are you at with that, Vlad?
Yeah, those are great odds. I think the only concern that fantasy players and Dodgers fans had before the season started was innings limitations. Just wanting to make sure that he is fully ramped up for the playoffs. And as some teams do, you sometimes get those phantom IL stints. And we might see that sometime maybe around the All-Star break with Kershaw, just to preserve his arm over the second half of the season. But man, he's a great pick. If you're telling me those are the odds, that's really, really nice. I do love your Spencer Strider pick. I think that's what I would have done in the preseason and bet on him. He's an absolute beast. So, but Clayton Kershaw at plus 1,000, those are phenomenal odds. And you mentioned Zach Gallen. He's incredible too. And looks like Arizona has been in the hunt there in the playoff. Well, so far it's early. Dodgers, maybe Padres will be in competition for that division. But yeah, that's a nice three-way race, and we might see some other players pop in there.
Takes me back to high school, baby. This was my jam back in the day, rolling around in my Ford Probe. I'm pretty sure that was my very first car.
I was gonna say in your caddy, but
no,
you were certainly not. You were certainly not in the club.
Had the pop-up lights though. I felt like I was,
you had the pop-up lights.
I was somebody
special.
My God. Not gonna lie. Anyways, we are back. That's Chris Moxley. I am Matt Bruni. He's Campus2Canton on the Better Sports Network.
Go show.
It's your birthday. No.
No.
Let's just keep it going.
Will's hitting us with the hits tonight.
Will, I know you're listening, and Felix is probably going to watch this. I'll type it in the chat as I ask Chris Moxley. We are going to talk about some win totals here, Moxley, and I want you to take it from here. You are like our betting guru. You guys watched us all last year during the season. We led you up to the start of college football games. We won you guys a lot of money. Austin and myself did fairly well as well, but you did really good. Austin, I remember, went on like a heater. If you avoided a lot of my calls at the end of the year, bet against me, you won yourselves a lot of money. So it was a lot of fun. Take us down these win totals for the 2023 college football season.
Yeah, so I finally got a chance to, post essentially the end of the transfer portal. There's a couple of players out there, but they probably won't make an impact unless they land on like worse teams. to really take a chance and look at our win totals. And so I'll go through the top 4. I have Georgia number 1. I don't think that should be a surprise with anyone. I have them projected at 11.3. DraftKings has them projected at 11.5. Not touching it. I not betting against Georgia in really any capacity. Ohio State 10.5. DraftKings has them at 10.5 as well. Obviously a no play. Michigan 10.3. DraftKings 10.5. Again, like we're pretty in sync. Alabama is where we start differentiating. So right, I have them at 9.5, and I actually would probably, if I manually adjusted their rating, a little bit lower. Their current odds are 10.5. I would bet the under on 10.5 at Alabama, to be totally honest. I think that number is too high. I think Texas is a live dog. I think LSU is a live dog, and I think they could lose a potential in-conference game, whether it's Ole Miss, Mississippi State. Someone could upset them, and so I don't want to be the one assuming that Alabama is going to win 11 of 12 games. That just feels a little bit much to me. There's a handful of teams that I think are pretty interesting as well. So like this is my top 20. I put on Twitter today and in our Discord at Campus2Canton, and so, you know, I've talked to a couple people about it. Some places where I am off, I really like Tulane's over. They're currently 8 on DraftKings. I have them at 9.2. I also think, well, I don't know if I want to give this out because I just really like them in general, but I really, really like Troy. I have Troy at 9.2, and their DraftKings wings are 8 as well. I just think John Sumrall is a really good coach, and they lost Carlton Marshall, but they didn't lose a whole bunch. Like after that, I think there's a good chance that they repeat, you know, in their conference, and so I'm willing to bet. It's minus 140 on DraftKings. So if you can find an 8 at a better value, I would certainly be more interested. But yeah, that number is too low for Troy.
All right, well, let's go through some of the big dogs here and give some, you know, our thoughts on the schedule and what we think that they could end up doing here. I mean, you've got Penn State, who's listed as the number 5 team on here. Their DK win totals is at 9.5. So you're assuming they're only going to lose. Well, if you go over, you've got to hope they only lose the one game. Really,
I have them at 9.9. And their total is 9.5. And if we're just assuming DraftKings, it's minus 130. So yeah, I think they would probably win 10 games. Essentially, like I project them to be a top 6 team this year in my power rankings, and so like that's kind of where I landed on them. I think there's a good chance that they beat the rest of their schedule and maybe trip up against like the powerhouses in Michigan and Ohio State. And even then, you're getting a 10-win program at 9.5, and I just think they're that good.
All right, what about Tennessee, who is also sitting at 9.5 plus, what is it, plus 130? Am I looking at that correctly? Yeah, plus 130.
Yeah, I actually project them at like exactly 9.5. I don't love this number either. I think they're probably going to take a step back this year. I would not touch their win total, to be honest, unless I was getting a value somewhere. But I think 9.5-ish is the right number. But there's potential that they slide back to like 9, 8 wins. Just like they kind of took the SEC by storm last year. I don't necessarily know what's going to happen this year, but I also don't want to discount that they can just like run opponents off the field given their offense. Like there are very few teams that can actually stop them, despite how talented I think they are. So yeah, I think 9.5 is probably the right number.
USC is a lot of people's favorite pick to win the Pac-12. They are fairly far down this list, which I was not expecting. Here down at 13 with 9.5, minus 165. They do have somewhat of a tough schedule with some of the teams that they play, but where I do think that they are, I don't want to say lucky, a lot of those games are at home outside of Notre Dame and Oregon.
Yeah. So I have them projected 9.2, and their DraftKings wins are 9.5. And so, like, right, like I'm within like 0.3 of the projection,
Right.
essentially. But I think the top of the Pac 12 is better than I think the market thinks it is. So, like, I like Oregon. I like Washington. I like Utah. Like, they're all top, I think, 16 teams for me. And so, if I believe that, then I think there's a good chance that USC trips up somewhere outside of like the expected games where they could, drop a win. And so I am lower on USC than I think consensus is. And like I am not rushing to lay anything on them because I know I'm lower and the odds tell me that that's probably not the right side to be on. But I just like the rest of the Pac-12. Like I gave Washington as the conference winner out last week on the show. And I still think that could be the case because USC added players on the offensive line and defensive line, like Bear Alexander from Georgia. It's a really good defensive lineman, and he will help shore up that rushing game, which was like bottom 5 in the country last year. But it was still bottom 5 in the country last year. Like I need to see some improvement, and so USC will probably be a team that I adjust pretty quickly if we see good results over the first like 4 or 5 weeks. But still.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm with you. I gave out, me and Felix did a segment probably a month or so ago now at this point, where we said things that we know to be true next year. And I said that we will see Caleb Williams go through his college football career without making the playoffs. I don't think that they're going to make it this year, which means I think you have to take the under here as well.
It's a tough schedule.
It is.
It really is. You get, I believe you get Oregon, Washington, and Utah.
Yeah, all back to back.
And UCLA, who I think could be a good team. Their
at that point in
is a little bit
time,
more like
Dante Moore is going to be starting, so they'll be a good team.
Their projection is pretty variable, which is I initially projected them in the top 20, but I had to roll it back because I think they might be like a rebuilding year. But I really like this USC team, but I don't love this USC team. And so people are rushing to bet them because I think they're the hot name. They're like 9.5 minus 165. I'm not touching that. That's a ridiculous number. It will get to 10 at some point, and then I will probably just say y'all are being like way too aggressive with the hype on this team because it does not match the results, even if we account for the transfers. And the transfers, I rated them 11th in my power rating.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was like fairly generous based on like where a couple other folks have them. And even then I'm just like, I can't get past like 10.5. Like that number's ridiculous.
If it gets to 10, I'm taking the under because so you mentioned their where it gets tough for them. The early part of the schedule, if they go, which I expect they'll go undefeated, and they'll probably win fairly easily against a lot of these teams early on, the Arizona States, Colorados, Arizona.
Bad.
Then they hit a stretch of Notre Dame away. They're playing in South Bend against Notre Dame. Then they come home and they get Utah.
I project them to win that Notre Dame.
I think that they'll win it as well, but it's still a tough game to go into South Bend in a rivalry game. And play them. Then they come home, they get Utah at home, then they go Cal. Cal should be a fairly easy win for them, but it is on the road. But then
I am a little bit higher on Cal than I think consensus is, so that's probably baked into this number as well. I think they could rebound.
Washington, Oregon, UCLA. Now UCLA, it's technically a home game. They're playing in the Rose Bowl. That's a
tough 3-game stretch, though.
Washington, who a lot of people are so they're getting 3 of the other teams that people are projecting to win the Pac-12 in Oregon, Washington, and Utah within a couple weeks of each other. And Oregon, the week before the UCLA game on the road in Autzen Stadium. Like, that will be a tough game, especially with the way I think Dan Lanning could have that Oregon defense playing this year with some of the transfers and everything that they brought in. I wanted to talk about Oregon, but we're running close to the end of the show, so I have to talk about the prince who was promised, Texas, down here at 9.5. You have to be smashing the over, right? They're only losing one game because it's Texas, and they're gonna slip up somewhere. You got to bet the over.
I actually only have them losing one game, and that's against Alabama. I just bake in.
So what you're telling me is they're going to go undefeated, baby, and that is what I love to hear. Hook them, and I'm not even really a Texas fan.
Yeah, no, I only have them losing one game by 6 or more, and actually they're a live dog in that game too. I've already played Alabama, Texas with Texas at like plus wherever it currently is. I know it's at 7 on DraftKings, but I project it 5.5, probably closer to 6 actually. But that is probably generous to Alabama. Yeah, I like Texas, right? Like I project them 9.2. Their DK wins are 9.5. Like I think Texas is a pretty good play, but there is risk there, and I think my projections bake them in. Like, right, what if Quinn Ewers isn't the prince who was promised, and he's so I actually was really impressed by his. So someone commented this on Twitter, and I had to go back and look. His footwork in the spring game was like way better than it was last year, and I think that was the big thing holding him back. So I do believe, like I have already made plays on Texas against Alabama. Like I have already done so, and I'll continue to do so as long as it is above a touchdown. But there's still a little bit of risk there.
I disagree. If you have the only loss on them being Alabama, they're going undefeated. They don't really have a tough road schedule this year. TCU at home, okay. I mean, I've gone to TCU home games. It's okay. They're not going to have Max Duggan. I don't really think Chandler Morris is anything special. Iowa State, that will be an interesting one because they are just a very tough team to beat, and I think that they will be hard for them. Then obviously you have the Alabama game in Tuscaloosa. Alabama doesn't even have their quarterback right now, and it sounds like it could be Tyler Buchner. We saw Quinn Ewers dicing them up last year after not playing football for 2 years. I'm all in. I've got Heisman odds on Quinn Ewers. I do too.
I do too. I don't want to underplay my Quinn Ewers height because I also have Heisman odds on him as well. Like I think he's a very good quarterback in a very good situation. I think Texas could be. I think Texas could be a playoff team.
Oh, they will be a playoff team. I was just a year early on this prediction.
I appreciate your optimism, but given what I've seen and the Texas is back mantra of the last decade, I at least need to be skeptical in my rankings, and I think I reflect that being like 0.3 under their expected win total.
Well, I'm going to disagree. All gas, no brakes, as Steve Sarkisian says. We're all in here on, what is it? The back 40. I'm not in the back 40, but on the back 40 here in Austin, Texas. We're playoffs. They're winning. You know what? I'm going to take it even one step further. Not only are they going to the playoffs, Quinn Ewers is going to win a Heisman, but I shouldn't say win a Heisman. I have some Kyle McCord futures on that too. So he's going to be at the Heisman ceremony. They're going to win the first game of the playoffs, and we will see Texas with the Prince that was promised in the national championship this year, and it is going to be magnificent because we're going to end the show here with this. 1, Felix H. Sharp II, Esquire. Felix H. Sharp II, right? That's it. Felix H. Sharp II.
You got it right.
Proclaimed that Quinn Ewers was going to have no future in football after his college career was done. And we're going to see him be a first-round pick next year after he takes Texas to the playoffs and a national championship game. You're welcome. Join us during the college football season. You'll see Moxley rocking mullets. I'll be rocking a mullet. If he takes him to the playoffs, I will grow out a mullet and I will bleach it blonde.
Oh, if they beat Alabama, I will be wearing a mullet. I already have the wig in my closet.
Be prepared. this is the year for Texas and Campus2Canton's Mullet Rage with Chris Moxley. I'm Matt Bruning. Thank you guys so much for checking out the Campus2Canton show. We'll be back next week, probably with Felix here, unfortunately. Everybody have a great day. Better Sports Today.